It could turn severe.
And we take you around the area to damage left by this morning's storms and bring you the weather extra on yesterday's radar outage.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
But first, check this out. A fireball from a meteor spotted over parts of South Carolina and Georgia earlier today. It was seen by many states around the region. This video was captured on a dash cam in Lexington County in South Carolina. The driver said she saw a big flash in the sky and then it disappeared. Reports of fireballs are somewhat common at night, but to have one occur in the daytime is even more fascinating. But we saw that today, and of course, there are several societies that will be evaluating exactly where that landed and more science behind it. But to see that during the day, it certainly grabbed a lot of attention.
If I saw that, I'd probably just be running in the opposite direction, west.
Right. I mean, we've had a lot of rain falling, and we've certainly had some intense lightning. You know, Lauren, you and I talked about this yesterday. When you get into these heat waves, sooner or later, I've say it time and time again, the bubble will pop. And it's kind of like once one storm starts, it just sets off storms. And man, did that happen last night.
It sure did happen last night. I woke up at 1 a.m. very surprised. I mean, we knew it was going to happen, but I'm like, it must be like 3 o'clock. I'm like, oh, no, it is already 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to have some more storms coming up, but you can clearly tell today it's helped to bring an improvement in the heat levels. It's not, you know, fall-like weather out there, but certainly more of the typical summer heat that we're dealing with. Let's go to the next big thing, and we're talking about weekend storms back on the increase. That's one of the big stories. Look at the heat index right now, 91 in Birmingham compared to 105 yesterday. You can see parts like Hamilton at 97. I know at one point it looked like we were at 109 for heat index yesterday, so a big improvement already. It's not a major drop-off, but we'll certainly take it. And right now, you can tell how we had that round of storms overnight. That was a big question mark. Will we get it during the overnight hours or this afternoon? Well, it happened overnight and during the morning, so that took a lot of the energy out of the atmosphere, and that's why we're not seeing a lot of wet weather right now. And there are some storms over into Georgia. Chance some of this could set off some development this evening over here into far east Alabama. Looks like some development there close to high top radar. So we're just giving you the first alert around Weiss Lake, point south there. Maybe a storm. Some of the models are picking up on that. You see through 7, 8 o'clock tonight. Maybe some development there in areas to the north, but models, as you can tell, even the guidance is getting a better handle on how those storms impacted the setup, so we're not seeing quite as much rain. But tomorrow we will start to see those afternoon storm chances going up again. You kind of see the heat, it just builds, it builds, it builds, and you have these widespread storms. And then tomorrow again will heat up close to 90 degrees. Humidity continues to build. Watch out in the afternoon just in case there are some storms. Not much of a breeze out of the southwest, but there was a little bit of a wind today, certainly helped us out. Our weather watchers checking in with us, and we did see over 1.5 inches of rain in Trussville from Tyler Young, and these are the high temperature reports and the rain totals for the day. Just a select numbers coming in. We do have more weather watcher reports that we'll be sharing throughout the evening, but look at Stephen Duke there in Rimlap checking in with over 2 inches of rain. So not only was the thunder rocking the state last night, we also had some very, very heavy rainfall. But just looking ahead, that weekend preview, I do think Saturday and Sunday, both days, plenty of time for outdoor activities. Very seasonal heat levels this weekend, your Saturday, your Sunday. This trend is going to continue through the 4th of July, but each afternoon storms will be possible. That's why check in with us, because that's that 24-hour window you really need to tune in, because that's when we have the best idea where some of those pop-ups, thunderstorms in the summer will happen each afternoon. So looking back at the overnight, I mentioned lightning strikes at one point. This morning we had over 1,000 lightning strikes with those storms in the matter of 15 minutes. So the lightning was definitely one of the big stories. Just a few local storm reports that were shared with the Weather Service here. I was just checking. This is near DeSoto Caverns Park in Talladega County. There were numerous trees reported down, and this was from microburst winds on Ruby Lane, including one tree on a home. And that was one of the reports in local storm reports. A lot of reports today, as you can see, over into parts of Georgia and into parts of the Carolinas. And again, these storms, for the most part, this evening, we're seeing a lot of that development over into East Alabama. And you may have seen this pop up across your radar yesterday. It wasn't necessarily an outage, but it was actually a glitch in the radar. You can see right there on the screen, but man, did it get some attention. I had a lot of messages. A lot of you were asking me questions. What is going on, especially as hot as it was out there yesterday? But what happened, technicians at the National Weather Service, it was simply a restart and just a brief glitch that happened. And what it reminded me of, sometimes a radar can be in a very highly sensitive mode called clear air mode, is what it looked like to me. But sometimes, you know, things like that happen, right? It's just like an old CD player, Lauren. Sometimes it would skip a beat.
That still makes me mad thinking about that. Don't want to scratch those CDs or DVDs. Well, don't want to scratch the radar either. Well, those overnight storms also left some damage across parts of the area. You can see this tree fell on a house in Fultondale. WBRC spoke to the homeowner, who says they woke up hearing the crash. The tree from their yard landed on their neighbor's house.
Between 1:30 and 2 o'clock, the storm just kind of got really loud, and then all of a sudden you could hear a big bang and a crash. First thing we did was check, make sure everybody in the house was okay. And then the next thing was to check and make sure no one in the neighbor's house was hurt.
Well, the family had just moved into that house, unfortunately, a few days ago, but at least no one was hurt. Well, severe weather happening in southern Minnesota yesterday, which may have spawned multiple tornadoes. A driver took video of this tornado as it crossed the road in front of her across the Heartland. Officials across the area received reports of damage to a barn due to these storms. Wow, that's crazy video. And a similar situation happening across Florida. Commercial and residential properties suffering damage after strong storms in the Pinellas area. You can see in the video behind what was left behind from a tornado that also moved through these neighborhoods west of Tampa. Thankfully, there were no significant injuries. And around the world, heavy rain bringing significant impacts affecting travel. In Venezuela, a bridge that connects the Andean and central regions of the country collapsed after the heavy rain. It happened Wednesday, and the governor has since announced the closure of this passage for vehicles. Authorities also saying there were no injuries or casualties as a result of this event. Well, in 30 seconds, we break down those rain chances as we get a little closer to the start of the weekend and take you beyond the atmosphere for a bit of a celestial surprise. We'll be right back.
All right, the next big thing in our first alert weather, those seasonal summer heat levels are back, and we're going to cruise right on into next week and the 4th of July with classic summer mode weather. We've been in a heat wave, but we're coming off of that heat wave thanks to those storms last night. Really kind of busted into those above average temperatures. Isolated storms this evening, still a possibility, most likely East Alabama. And then as we look ahead to tomorrow, we'll gradually see an increase in those storms during the afternoon, and some of those may be strong to severe. I'm still tracking a disturbance south and east of Alabama. If I go over to the water vapor satellite image, actually looking at the moisture levels in the atmosphere, I'll bring that up, and what you will see across the southeast region is there's a little bit of a swirl that's happening down in the areas to the southeast. Let's flip over to another mode here and put this into motion, and I'm going to animate this and see right there. You can see that rotation across parts of Florida. That's the system that's going to keep us in this pattern. It's going to keep working into that summertime ridge, so we're going to see those afternoon storms each day, and next week need to watch it if you're making plans for the 4th. No tropical systems at the moment, but beach weather very similar. Lauren, it looks like we could be talking about some afternoon storms coming up in Monday and Tuesday, but of course one of the big stories today, despite the heat, the storms, was this meteor that was spotted across the southeast. But you've got the weather lowdown on exactly what happened today.
Yeah, Wes, because everyone wants to learn more about space junk, right?
That's right.
If there's one thing that is a little difficult for us to give you a first alert about, it's when random objects are going to be falling from the sky. We'll try our best, though. So we've got a lot of different terminology here. So I just wanted to break it down for you. Even I had to look this up. You know, as a meteorologist, still got to refamiliarize ourselves with stuff that goes on beyond the atmosphere. So an actual meteoroid is a piece of rock, could have come from an asteroid that travels through space. Now, it's called a meteor when it enters the Earth's atmosphere, and technically the meteor is that light you see. It burns up as it encounters the Earth's atmosphere as a result of friction as it gets closer to the Earth's surface. And so as it's moving through Earth's atmosphere, that light it's emitting is called a meteor. Now, if you have a situation where a meteor makes contact with the Earth's surface, then that would be a meteorite. And we do think we actually saw a meteorite today because we got reports in from our friends at the National Weather Service over in Atlanta that some people had actually had some debris come through their roof. So as Wes was saying earlier, this is still something that's going to be investigated, but you can actually see where the fireball showed up on satellite imagery today. So this is showing us over here in Alabama. This was around 11:26 a.m. this morning, and this is actually a map that shows not just clouds in the atmosphere, but it can also track lightning. And so where you're seeing the yellows and the greens here, that is actually indicating clusters of lightning developing. And so you see that right over Georgia. That is actually just around the Atlanta metro. That is not lightning. That is what the satellite was sensing as lightning, but it was actually the meteor as it was burning up in Earth's atmosphere and creating that light as it came through. Now, there were reports, some people were saying, hey, I felt some shaking. Did that lead to an earthquake? But it looks like all that was a sonic boom as it entered the Earth's atmosphere. And so that's what caused that relative shaking. So we'll always give you that little extra something on Weather Extra. Well, Duke researchers helped build a powerful new telescope now capturing the most detailed images of the universe ever taken. The Vera Rubin Observatory unveiled its first images Monday from Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham. Liz McLaughlin has the details.
Today is really exciting.
Stargazers and scientists gathered at Wallace Wade Stadium Monday.
And we got the biggest screen we could find
to see the result of more than a decade of work, streamed live from half a world away.
It looks amazing. That validates why I spend all my time doing this.
The Vera Rubin Observatory released its first images, captured with the largest digital camera ever built, a 3,200 megapixel powerhouse perched in Chile's high desert.
And it covers the entire sky every 3 nights or so. And it does it for 10 years. So we're going to get this unbelievable map of the sky and how it changes.
Duke researchers helped design key pieces of the telescope's hardware and software, used to detect everything from dark matter to exploding stars to incoming asteroids.
If there's an asteroid which is coming towards the Earth, this will allow us to know well ahead of time so that we can go and push it out of the way.
And now you can zoom through billions of galaxies with an interactive sky map online. It's not just space nerds watching. Research here in North Carolina is helping unlock the secrets of the cosmos.
Nice. All right, welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. Lots of sunshine out there. 85 degrees at Crane Works. If you went out to the concert at the Coca-Cola Amphitheater last night, you're saying, well, it could have happened tonight, right, with these kind of temperatures. I know it was hot last night. We did have storms, though, that helped us out. Live look from Jacksonville State University. Heat index much lower, but it's still in the 90s out there. I mean, we're going to see summer heat levels continue for the weekend and the next week. Not a lot of wet weather, though. All the storms overnight. That was the big show. That really worked over the atmosphere. So the storms are very, very limited. There might be an isolated pop-up thunderstorm through this evening over East Alabama. There's some with storms in the Atlanta area. Keep in mind, it's a lot cooler over here. So you got this little cool pocket of air that's running into these 90-degree, upper 80-degree temperatures over in East Alabama. That might set off a storm. But for the rest of the night, things settle down. Most of Friday, first part of the day looks good tomorrow. Watch it in the afternoon for scattered storms. Those chances come around after about 2 o'clock through the evening. And then we do it again on Saturday. Looks like we're sort of on cruise control with this summer pattern through the weekend and into next week. Saturday afternoon, watch it around the lake. Also on Sunday. And then we're seeing this disturbance. This is what we were telling you about earlier in the week, approaching from the southeast. You can see the spin in the atmosphere. But basically what this is going to do is kind of keep us in this setup across the region. We don't really see that big ridge overhead that's trapping all the heat. So we're going to be talking about highs closer to average and again afternoon storms in the days ahead. So that's the view from space, but basically you can see the models picking up on that. And with temperatures staying close to 90, that means the heat index will likely be in the upper 90s through the weekend and into next week. But any given day, now through the end of next week, we're going to have afternoon storm chances. Any of those storms could grow severe. But like we saw last night, especially on those very hot afternoons, lightning, cloud-to-ground lightning with any thunderstorm is possible. So make sure you have the First Alert Weather app right on through the 4th of July so you can receive those lightning alerts. Overnight lows down into the 70s. No tropical systems right now that's we're concerned about. If you're heading to the coast for the 4th of July week, maybe traveling this weekend, just keep in mind between here and the coast, there will be some scattered storms inland and along coastal areas. You may run into some of those heavy downpours in the afternoon and evening. But talking more about that long-range forecast, Lauren has the breakdown.
Hey, Wes, like you said, at least in the Atlantic, the tropics, kind of all you hear is crickets right now. And hey, that's a good thing. We'll take that for as long as we can. But one big story that we've had going on is, of course, the summer heat. It finally chilled out, quite literally, a little bit today, thanks to the overnight storms. But as we look at that temperature outlook 8 to 14 days from now, and that's looking at July 4th through the 10th, looking at the possibility of above average temperatures, so maybe more low to mid 90s. And then as far as the precipitation outlook, it still shows us here in central Alabama with the possibility to see more storms than you would typically see on a regular old summer day. So let's look at the future cast here beyond the 7-day. And of course, this time of the year, we always want to keep a close eye on the Western Atlantic Basin, the Caribbean, and the Gulf. So this is looking at next Friday, July 4th, actually. So a little sneak peek ahead to Independence Day. Remember, it's not going to look exactly like this. It will change, but showing the possibility of maybe a little bit of unsettled weather closer to the Gulf. So if you're going to the beach for the weekend or the long weekend for the 4th of July, there could be some more unsettled weather, some storms around. Not seeing anything that would indicate crystal clear tropical development, though. But that weekend of the 4th here in central Alabama, the potential for maybe a few storms around. And then as we get into that next week of July, here we are Monday the 7th, showing the possibility of maybe seeing some more unsettled weather. You kind of have this west-northwest flow in the atmosphere, and that can bring that possibility of more storm clusters through. That can lead to more coverage of storms than you would see on a typical summer day. And now we're headed to the desert as spikes and blooms are in the sweltering heat of the Southwest. Dan Smith has the story of cacti in your moment of science.
They're prickly and persistent, surviving in some of the harshest environments on the planet. This week, we're getting the point across and exploring the science behind cacti. They've featured in civilization for millennia, from medicine for the Incas to jams and preserves in ancient Mexico. They're actually native to the Americas, only introduced to Europe by Christopher Columbus on one of his return voyages, though Africa does have similar plants called euphorbs. Areoles are those little different colored bumps you see on the outside of cacti where spikes and sometimes flowers emerge from, and that's one of the big differences between the Old World and New World plants. Cacti belong to the succulent family, so they are related to snake plants and aloe vera, though I wouldn't recommend rubbing a cactus on your skin to treat sunburn. Even if your skin dries out in the sun, cacti combat it in many ways. Their specialized roots absorb water quickly, and their waxy exterior combined with those signature spines can reduce airflow and water loss, provide a bit of shade, and even ward off some prospective diamond dashers, though certainly not all. By the way, do you remember our feature on the Fibonacci sequence where each number is the sum of the two previous ones? Well, cacti in many succulents follow that principle as the spiral shape optimizes surface area and lets them suck up even more rain during the occasional desert event. Incredibly, even their photosynthesis is different. A typical leafy green plant takes in CO2 and releases water during the heat of the day. Cacti do one better and perform that transpiration at night, further reducing water loss compared to doing the same thing at high noon. For all we've shown you so far, we haven't mentioned these most iconic of them all, saguaros. Some of these cacti can live for up to 200 years, and the tallest one ever recorded towered 78 feet above the desert floor. It certainly has humble beginnings, growing only a couple inches in its first 10 years and another 40 to 60 years to grow its first arm. Saguaros are such a quintessential desert Southwest plant that it's a felony to vandalize one in the state of Arizona. So the next time you pick up a prickly pear at the greenhouse, spare a thought for all the forces that cacti can endure and adapt to, blooming in living color through it all. For this week's Moment of Science, I'm Dan Smith.
And before we send you off into your Thursday evening and look at some weather photos, a beautiful rainbow on Bright Star Road sent in from Daniel Freeman.
Man, that is so beautiful. Joy Amberson was sharing some of that pea-sized hail that was falling with that storm that popped up around Oxmoor Valley yesterday. The beginnings of what turned out to be a very, very stormy night.
Hey, we always love when someone sends us a horizontal video. Thank you for that. And thanks to Nick Lally for sending in this shot of lightning in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, that was looking to the south, that severe storm over Bibb County last night. Nick Lally with the Tuscaloosa County EMA, and Ryan Carty sharing this lightning in Atlanta.
Wow.
What a show. Lightning crawlers, as we call it. They just crawl across the sky there.
If only Ryan had caught the meteorite coming through today. Well, Charles G. Tucker sending in this rainbow from Snead. Oh, looks like a little double rainbow there, actually.
I was about to say, you've got to watch Ryan. I mean, you will see a storm somewhere or something like the meteor today, and then he shares a video, and he's like underneath it, right?
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a great job. He's one of the storm spotters here in the area. Really helps us out when there's some active weather, but it looks like a little bit calmer for tonight.
Yeah, that's fine by me. If we had to take it from those overnight storms, I'm good with it.
There you go. Hey, we'll have updates on your weekend forecast and more. We'll see you here first at 9.